Eastern Chad, about as remote and desolate as it gets. And yet, 300,000 refugees from Darfur live here in 12 camps, scattered along the border with Sudan. Today, it's 45 degrees Celsius, but Halima, her daughter, and a neighbor are out in the blazing sun picking maquette. Like all those who escaped the conflict in Darfur, they are dependent on food aid to survive. But since January, they have been living on half the food they should be getting, so they have had to resort to foraging to survive.
Until recently, we were getting enough to live on. Since the rations were cut, we only have leftovers. We haven't eaten meat in 10 days. So now I go to collect maquette, as well as the firewood and water. It is difficult. I have a bad knee and my son and husband are not well either.
Halima and her family fled Darfur 10 years ago.
They attacked using airstrikes, armed vehicles, horses and camels. Our whole village was destroyed. Animals taken, and we had to leave our dead behind. My husband and son were injured during our escape. The Janjaweed took everything we had. We came to Gaga camp with only the clothes on our backs. We will not return to Darfur. Today they are dying and tomorrow they will still be dying. We would rather die here than go back.
Getting food thousands of miles out into the desert is an expensive challenge. It's also a race against time, because when the rainy season hits, the roads become impassable. But the reason these warehouses are almost empty is from lack of funding. Gaga camp now holds 20,000 people. Markets have sprung up, and the Chadian government allows refugees to use the desert land to grow food. But drought and floods makes farming here nearly impossible.
The sorghum we tried to grow was washed away. Fava and okra too, all washed away.
Maquette must be ground and soaked for several days before it can be eaten. Many survival foods have some nutritional and even medicinal qualities, but they are not cultivated, so the more they are picked, the further you have to go out into the desert to find them. Leftovers go a long way too. These sorghum cereal scraps are collected, dried, and pounded into a powder. Water is then added to make yet another meal. If funding doesn't come soon, then improvised meals like this will become increasingly frequent for Halima and her family. Worse yet, hunger and malnutrition will too.
Kung Phan was once a successful farmer with land in Vietnam's fertile Mekong Delta. Today, Phan lives on a small allowance from his children. And his farm? It's out there, underwater, a kilometer or so off the coast of this beach.
We grew watermelon, peanuts, and sweet potatoes. Then we couldn't do it anymore because the seawater began flooding our land. We built a sea dike, but it was damaged each year, and eventually we had to leave.
Thousands of coastal farmers have already lost their land and incomes, but now sea level rise is threatening even more farmers upstream. During the dry season, salty seawater easily flows inland, contaminating freshwater irrigation canals and threatening Vietnam's most important export, rice.
Climate change has had a severe impact on the economy of the province and on rice production in particular. Saline water now comes every year to the inland areas, which results in reduced production.
60 kilometers upstream, farmer Bin Tak would never have imagined seawater entering his irrigation canal, but today it's killing his crop. This season, he expects his harvest will be half of what it once was.
I went to the canal and tasted the water as I did just now, and then pumped it into my field. But the rice is not growing well. It's dying. So I cannot pump water into the field anymore because I don't know how salty it is.
Farmers say they are in desperate need of information and ideas that will help them adapt to climate change. And for the first time, they might get the help they're looking for. Over the next 6 years, the UN's International Fund for Agricultural Development, in cooperation with the Vietnamese government, will invest $50 million in activities like monitoring and forecasting salinity, improving irrigation canals and dikes, and helping farmers find income alternatives that might include growing something other than rice.
If it's too difficult to produce rice, then we need alternatives, and we need to encourage farmers to shift to other farming systems, such as aquaculture.
Here in this lab at Traven University, researchers are looking for fish species that are more tolerant to salt water and could provide a good income for farmers. But time is running short. Warm weather brings on more pests and crop diseases, and when temperatures exceed 36 degrees Celsius, the rice pollen itself becomes sterile, threatening an even larger collapse. In the meantime, rice farmers here gather with local officials and project staff to begin discussing their adaptation strategies. For farmers like Bin Tak, the goal is simple: to stay one step ahead of climate change.
I am supporting 18 people. My wife's family, the elders, have died. So I've taken the responsibility of the family. They are depending on me. Our main gardening is cabbages, tomatoes, and this cane paper.
We buy a lot of our fruits and vegetables from smallholder farmers, and we use that to make jams, sauces, achas, chutneys. Eswatini Kitchen has proven to be a very good source of business for these smallholder farmers who unfortunately cannot find an alternative market for their produce.
As one goes through the factory, you will see that most of the women that are working here are single parents, and they have to basically fend for themselves. Eswatini has created a lot more employment and enable these women to provide a little better for their families.
I've been working for Eswatini 21 years. My partner was sick. The doctor found that he got TB and HIV positive. I tried to help him go to the hospital, getting injection each and every day. Oh, and it fails because God took him. That's why I have 7 children now with no one to help. If I want to work here, I think the situation will be very bad. The children, they won't go to school, they won't get clothing, they won't get food. I don't think I will have such a home like now.
Eswatini is one of the 25 agro-processors who are benefiting from the Marketing Investment Fund, which is a €1 million fund that was set up with the support from the European Union with technical assistance by FAO. And the Marketing Investment Fund is part of a broader Swaziland agricultural development program, which is involved in many other activities, notably in support of production. We are actually already helping more than 20,000 farmers in Swaziland to move from subsistence agriculture to a more sustainable, high-income generating and market-led agriculture.
Swaziland is a food insecure country where some 29% of the population cannot meet daily food requirements, and where 70% of the population lives in rural area. In addition, HIV and highest prevalence rate in the world, which also has a strong impact on the rural areas and agriculture because of the impact that it has on the family level. So I think this program has a strong potential on the ground.
If you can support Swaziland Kitchen, I know that Swaziland Kitchen will support me and my family will be okay.